our work. We had, as I mentioned, our first meeting last July 16th, which was a Tuesday. Our committee is not just board members, it's also comprised of members of the administration and community members. And we had a pretty kind of quick meeting. We kind of covered when we're going to meet, and I want to make sure that the group knows the next meeting of this committee will be Tuesday, August 20th. We meet very early at 8 a.m. And our agenda was mostly looking back at the 18 and 19 legislative priorities, and we just started to discuss, as I mentioned, this will be the bulk of the work we do in the next couple of sessions, the 2020 legislative priorities. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, the Government Relations Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm Dr. Marvia Jones, and I chair the Community Engagement and Communications Committee. I'm proud to also have my co-committee members, Manny Abarca and Rita Cortez, who was very busy. And so I'm just going to be very brief, give you an overview of our committee. So we have 2 to 3 key objectives for our committee. So primarily, we're interested in having what we call a two-way dialogue with the community. So we want to increase the interactions between the community as well as KCPS. We know that we have some folks in some parts of our community who have been engaged for a while, so they have kids in the district, they've maybe themselves been graduates. We also know there are parts of our community that have not been engaged for a while. We want to re-engage them. And so that's a key goal. And the last one is just to share information about the district's progress. So while we want to listen and hear how people experience the district, we also want to be able to share information about where the district is going, or where the key areas of improvement are, and where we've seen great progress. So those are our key goals. We want to build upon the great plan that the board before us, the people who were on the committee prior to this board, they work to develop a plan of community engagement that really works around how can we be present at the different things that are already going on in the community, and then how can we also create those opportunities for that interaction. So we have tentatively set an ongoing pattern of meeting on the first Friday morning of each month. So our next meeting should be in a couple of weeks, and this will be posted per rules and policy. Thank you.
So as I turn the next item over to Dr. Vidal, we're very pleased tonight to have lots of special guests in the room, including representatives from a firm that works very closely with the school district, the administration, and the board to help us stay apprised of policy issues that have deep and sometimes positive and sometimes not so positive effects on public education in Kansas City and across the state. So I think this is an important opportunity for those in the room and those who might be listening in to understand better how public education issues have an impact on Kansas City Public Schools. So with that, I will turn this over to Dr. Vidal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're excited to have John Barget and Associates to come in, give an update to our board and to the public around the lobbying efforts on behalf of the school district. As you all know, we generally enter into session in January and it concludes in May. But prior to that, there's a tremendous amount of work that takes place, starting with our Government Relations Committee, which Ms. Wolfsey chairs this year, where we come together and we decide on what are the legislative items that we will put our efforts into working with our lobbyists on behalf of the school district. We've had a tremendous amount of success, a lot of initiatives that we were able to get through. We were able to highlight to the community during our State of the Schools presentation, being able to remove some of the legislative barriers that often become impediments to our students being able to reach their fullest potential. And so we're very excited about our work with them over these past 3 years, and I know that they've also had previous experience with the school district. We look forward to continuing to work with them, and we want to go ahead at this time and invite the group up to present to the community on what they've been doing in Jefferson City on our behalf. So, Mr. Barget.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vidal, Madam Chairperson, members of the board, and distinguished guests. I am John Barget, and I have the privilege of working with the Kansas City Public School System Board and Administration and trying to help with the legislative monitoring activity and activity in Jefferson City. So first off, thank you all for what you do for our community. It's a big job, takes a lot of time, and I'm learning about some of the committees, and Ms. Cortez serves on a lot of committees, it sounds like. I hope we get on our committee too. But anyway, the challenges that public education face in the Missouri legislature are very well known to all of you and to many of the people in this room and to those that may be listening. They are great challenges, and it takes a lot of time and effort on the part of many board members, the administration, Dr. Vidal and his team, to share what's really going on in the Kansas City Public School System with not only the Kansas City delegation, but with all the members of the state legislature, both in the Senate and the House, that are formulating and considering public policy changes that can impact all of the K-12 students in this state. I think in many times people see a problem occur in one school district around the state and they want to have a cookie cutter fix for everything. And you know what? That's why we have chocolate and vanilla. All things don't work everywhere. So with that in mind, we have been very privileged to work with Linda, Dr. Vidal. I think we've done a very fine job working with them and communicating to the members of the state legislature, introducing them to those that they did not know. And I take just a moment to say this because I think it's extremely important. As was mentioned, I did have the privilege and the opportunity of working with this board in previous years under previous administrations. And I'm very proud to say to you that under Dr. Vidal's administration and with the new board and the most previous board, Kansas City Public Schools are no longer the poster child for education reform in the Missouri legislature. You all have turned the corner. You've done some great things. Still got a ways to go, as you all know, but that's very positive. The members of the previous board, and I know some of you are already talking about coming to Jefferson City to meet with legislators. That's the type of activity that we need to let people know what exactly you're trying to do, where some of the challenges are, and yes, as I'll tell you for a moment here, with over 1,914 pieces of legislation introduced last legislative session, there were over 200 that impacted K-12 education. Not all of those were impacting it in a good way, I'm afraid to tell you. And so we do have the opportunity to share those thoughts. There's a number of ways that we have talked with you and with others at the KCPS about how we can create new relationships with new legislators, new board members, and really try to have the best outcome possible for the students that are attending the Kansas City Public Schools. I'm very honored to have several of my associates with me today, and we're going to be respectful of your time. So I might just, Chris Ropey is here, Erica Leonard, who is our budget guru for the state budget, and Jacqueline Barget, who is also lobbies on your behalf. We have two others in Jefferson City that did not make the trip, but we are here. I'm going to take 1 second to just talk about a couple of general things, and I'd like to have Erica talk a little bit about the budget so that you just have some familiarity with what we're going to face and what we did face. The challenges that we have in Jefferson City, we have about 60 new House members that came in this year. We have approximately 10 new senators. A couple of those did come over from the House, so they have past legislative experience. And so they're by and large, wonderful people like yourselves that are trying to serve the public. But it's incumbent upon us to make sure that they hear the good news about what's happening at KCPS and not always hear from detractors or others about the one bad thing that happens. We need to keep reminding them about the 10 positive things that happen to a young student and work on the one thing that didn't happen to improve it. So with that in mind, we host seminars for the legislators. My team and I are constantly meeting with them. We're in the Capitol whenever their legislature's in session. Some of the people sitting at this very table in front of me have all spent a day in the legislature where they have met up to 20 legislators in about a 2.5-hour period and got a great opportunity to meet some of their neighbors from Kansas City. And ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you, I think it's very important, and where we have made some success, is for those that don't live in Kansas City, for those that are as far away as Puxico, Missouri, and St. Louis County. They need to know the good things that are going on here and not hear from somebody that doesn't even know what they're talking about, a bad story about Kansas City Public Schools. We have tried to be your champions. We want to continue to do that. We thank you for the opportunity to do that. So I would like to just ask for a couple minutes, Erica Leonard, to share with you just a little bit about how the state budget works, because it's so important to our funding. And then secondly, I'd like to ask Chris Ropey to come up and just kind of go over some of the bills that we have worked on, that we're going to work on, with some of the fiscal impact that they could have had, and some of the things that we've worked on. Madam Chairperson, does that meet with your approval? So this is Ms. Erica Leonard.
Good evening, everybody. As John stated, I am Erica Leonard. I have worked for the firm of John Barget and Associates for 15 years, specifically for you being the eyes and ears on the ground in Jefferson City, monitoring the state budget. As you know, Missouri has a $28 billion state budget, and we want to ensure that Kansas City Public School District has the financial stability to make sure that we're getting the portion that we need to continue educating the young people of our district. Currently, state revenue is up 16%, which is a phenomenal number. We expect that to move. It honestly moves on a daily basis. So we watch that, or I should say I watch that on your behalf to see what's happening, to ensure that we don't have anything scary coming down the pipeline, such as funding withholds that Governor Parson has the ability to do. We've had that in the past. We don't envision anything like that coming down the pipeline right now, but again, I watch it on a daily basis. So that is a moving target. Also right now, what is happening in the State Department levels is your Commissioner of DESE is working to build her budget request that will go to the Office of Administration, Budget and Planning Division as of October 1st. Those figures will get submitted. You will get that information from us to review and what's going forward on behalf of what she believes is best for the public schools in Missouri. That information will funnel through the administration, and then our governor, Mike Parson, will produce his state budget recommendations in January. We also provide you with that information, and then we see how it tallies against your legislative priorities, how things may need to be different, or what we need to move forward going through the legislative session. So January is a big step for us in knowing what the legislature will be working on in terms of the state budget. And from that point, then our friends on the Missouri House Budget Committee and the Senate Appropriations Committee will be working to identify their own versions of the state budget and how the public schools will receive funding within those mechanisms. Specifically, House Bill 2 is where our funding is located, and those of the members on my team like to joke, I invest a lengthy amount of hours monitoring that process and ensuring that the Kansas City Public School District is at the forefront of those discussions in House Bill 2. The state budget does have to be passed in the form of a balanced budget the first Friday after the first Monday in May. So generally we see that time frame around the 7th to the 10th. Where it has to be passed and will go to the governor for his final say-so. So our budget in Missouri runs from July through June. So we've just entered fiscal year 20. So next session we will be crafting fiscal year 21. So we will be watching that closely and giving you the feedback of what you need to know and who you need to be contacting, or what you need to be reminding folks of the importance of what you do for the young people of this district. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Chris Ropey to talk a little more on policy. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And I'll just, I think some of the stuff John said, to reiterate, you are a unique district because of the way it's defined in state statute. So things will affect you differently than other districts, and this one size fits all just doesn't work. And so it is important that you have a voice who's watching your back and your issues on a day-to-day basis as things start to move very quickly during the legislative process. And just to touch on a few issues that were of specific, negative impacts that would have occurred to you that we were able to work with the former board members and the new board members that have come on in this last election, getting through the legislative process. Senate Bill 271 was a piece of legislation that was filed by a state senator who isn't from this area. He's from deep down in southwest Missouri, but his legislation would have affected only your school district and only the St. Louis School District, and it had to do with how you share local revenues with your charter schools. And that piece of legislation, unfortunately, was brought forward without your input, without you having a seat at the table, and quite frankly was drafted in a poor way that didn't even really accomplish what they thought they were trying to accomplish. And we spent a substantial amount of time working on that and trying to slow that piece of legislation down, and eventually we were successful at getting it stopped in the committee process. But I think the estimates, and Linda can verify this, the amount of revenues it would have taken from your operating budget and shifted it over, depending on what the year would have been, were like $4 to $6 million if they would have been successful at passing that. And I know you're going to make some efforts this year to try to figure out how to do it in a fair way and have yourself at a seat at the table and have a process that works and makes sense, which is commendable to do. But I mean, those are the types of things and issues like that can have a real negative impact. Another issue that had significant fiscal impact for you all right here, because you have so many financial institutions, more than anywhere else in the state except for probably St. Louis, was the financial institutions tax, which accidentally got messed up in the corporate tax cuts that the Republican legislature passed 2 years ago, which you'll see a $1.5 million, essentially an increase that was taken away that you're now going to get back. And we'll not lose out on that money because we were able to get that fixed this year during this past general assembly that met. Other pieces of legislation that we worked on your behalf, there was some deed restriction language that was passed that want to take away local control and how you deal with some of your buildings, which I think you want to continue to be able to decide what you think is best for your district and how you deal with that. There was some legislation introduced that would have undid the transportation in the agreement you were able to get with KCPS-TV 2 years ago, which we were able to help pass and shepherd through on your behalf, where it would have undid that. So we were able to go work with the appropriate legislators to make sure they changed the language so it didn't have an effect and take away a very good program that I think you're very proud of and be able to offer for your students and do it in a way that's good for families here. There's a lot of gun legislation, as I'll call it, where right now in law there are exemptions at places where you're not allowed to carry a firearm, and some legislators passed a bill out of the House, and we were able to advocate with the Senate committee that heard that bill that would have allowed guns to go on school grounds, and were able to stop it in that committee, working with a strong coalition of others around the state that had an interest to make sure we were able to do that. There was some Port Authority legislation that was passed to clarify some issues, and I know you deal with your local TIF issues and other economic incentives that you have to deal with in your budget, and how you all address that we had good communication to make sure that didn't have a negative impact on you, and I think we were positioned very nicely to clarify that didn't happen and make sure that legislation would not have a negative impact on what you guys are doing here in Kansas City. There's a whole host of other issues that the legislature will continue to try to pass, where it's changing the dates of your school board elections. They constantly want to move those to November partisan elections, and I think it's important to continue to have school boards be nonpartisan and have those in April. But that's always an aggressive push by the General Assembly to try to make those changes. When you deal with levy issues, there are opportunities they seek out to make sure that you've got to reach a certain voter turnout. And the ironic part about folks that push that, they don't even have those types of turnouts that they want to see in that legislation for their own elections as state legislators. So you see all kinds of stuff. There's bills that get filed that want to take away your voice to be able to go lobby because you're a government employee or you work for the school district, that we're able to work with others to slow down those as well. As you look forward, like John said, there's a lot of new freshman legislators in the House that need to be brought up to speed and need to be educated on issues and why you're a unique school district and how some of these issues affect you, to make sure they're not doing harm and that they are trying to do things that are going to be helpful to educating students here in Kansas City. The same thing in the Senate. John said there's 10 new members, and we're going to lose 10 after next year, including your 2 state senators. And so who knows who will be the next 2 people that take those positions, but we will be ready to work with them on your behalf, and it's important to make sure they understand your needs and for you all to start to develop those relationships as you deal with them locally. The last thing I'll mention is there was an interim committee formed to deal with what would be this assessment, valuation, and all those issues you're seeing right now, that I would highly encourage Linda and everybody on Dr. Vidal's sort of senior staff team to put together maybe a presentation because of some desegregation issues, how you are affected differently than every other school district across the state, and that this one size fits all, that the committee who's going to look at those issues understands how this will impact you, and you want to make sure if they're going to go fix that issue or whatever they want to do with it, when we don't know where they're headed, that they do it in a way that's going to make sense and they understand at least the decisions they're making, and then we'll worry about how we affect that legislation once they come forward with something. But they need to know how that will impact and affect you. With that, I will be quiet, and I think we can take any questions or anything else we can address.
Thank you so much.
Madam Chairperson, one thing I should have mentioned before, and I would like to do so, we do work with the Missouri School Board Association and others, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention the delegation in the state legislature, both senators and representatives, for the most part, are wonderful supporters of yours, and we have been very fortunate to have the services, for a whole host of reasons, in Kansas City, of Senator Kiki Curls, who has been a diehard supporter of this public school system. We'd be here all night if I started listing the legislation that she has passed for us and helped get in the way of that would have hurt the school children in this district. So I want to publicly make sure we do thank Senator Kiki Curls.
Thank you so much, and I agree. Mr. Barca?
Yeah, so you guys mentioned a couple issues. I think it's important for us to hear from your perspective, what's one or two things that we should focus on, either positively or negatively? If we take everything aside, I mean, as you had mentioned in executive session, talking about there are so many other bills that affect education, what are the one or two things that we should most focus on?
So, I mean, I think the issues that you will see next year that are going to have the most impact on you here is this property tax issue. I think the legislature will want to do something. I mean, as we kind of say in politics, that's red meat for who is in the majority party in Jefferson City, and so I think you will see something come forward on that, and so we need to be prepared to deal with that, and that starts with this interim committee, and then, you know, us with your help communicating with legislators and the local delegation at how we address that. I think you'll see an effort on charter expansion and accountability and how all of that looks, and I think you would prefer to see that done in a certain way, and there will be opportunities to make that known to lawmakers, and you will have a seat at the table for those conversations. You will see that issue, and then this local revenue sharing and what's the fairest way and what's the best way to do that will be back, and I think that's, as we mentioned earlier, depending on how your conversations go and how, you know, with local charters, and they've got their state association, that trying to figure out to do it what's going to benefit and be the best for the students and the families of this district in a fair way, and I know you're willing to do that, and that's what you want to see happen, and you may see them try to go in and do something on their own without your support, and that's where we will have to be there to make sure that doesn't happen, and with your help advocate to do that in the proper way, and you'll see that issue front and center and get a lot of attention early. I think those are the three big issues that I kind of see coming that will have the most impact on what you do here.
Any other questions? Mr. Hogan?
Hey guys, thanks for the presentation, appreciate it. Chris, I want to hone in on that last point a little bit. So you guys are doing great work for the school district down in Jeff City. You're meeting with legislators and all of that good stuff. I'm a firm believer of having sort of executive to executive contact to resolve some of these things, or at least make our position known, particularly when you're in a competitive environment like we are, and the charters are absolutely doing that. And Linda and I have talked a little bit about this as well. If we were to ask you for a recommendation on what we can do very specifically outside of hiring folks like yourselves to help deal with some of the challenges specific to the local revenue share piece, what would your answer be?
Then the very first thing I would do, and Linda, we talked about this today, is meet with the individual leaders of the charter schools, each school. That's where I would start, because they've got skin in the game, and you have to figure out the best way to move forward that's fair for everybody, and getting them on board and having them understand the need to solve this problem. You know, not good or bad for one side or the other, but how to solve this problem, and getting them on board that's the place I would start, at that one-on-one level.
And what would step 2 be? Because I fundamentally agree. You've got to start there, and in an ideal world, they go, "Yep, let's go play in the sandbox together. We'll agree on what that revenue share looks like, etc." But let's assume that they don't play nice in the sandbox. What do you do then?
Then we go visit with your local delegation and make sure they understand that what is brought forward, you did not have a seat at the table, and this is. I mean, you look at the bill last year. I mean, it was drafted poorly enough where they were hurting themselves and were doing things they shouldn't have intended to do themselves, but that you weren't a part of that process is something that really resonates with the General Assembly as a whole. And you see people who don't have skin in the game for Kansas City. They're not from this area. They don't represent this area, but trying to do something that would, in our mind, harm this area. Other legislators sit back and say, it doesn't affect me or only affecting them, and their 2 senators are saying, no, this is bad. We don't like this. We weren't a part of these conversations. And so you need to get them on board as the next step in my mind.
I might like to add, as you think back, and the only reason that I can say this, Mr. Hogan, is because I've been there for 40 years watching it. Dr. Vidal, I'm old. Dr. Vidal has had the type of discussions and has reached out on each year since I've been here with leaders in your community, the charter schools. And I won't speak specifically to them because I was not in those meetings, but I can tell you that everyone has to deal in good faith and be honorable. I know Dr. Vidal has been. I won't speak to the charter school people in Kansas City. I think that they may have been. I don't know. But I can tell you that some of the others have not been. And so when they put a position that Chris is talking about, a piece of legislation introduced where you're already 6 steps back trying to get to this point, we should be all talking about the same thing at the same level from the same starting point. And the intent of many of these pieces of legislation have been to have you operating from 6 feet down, just trying to get back to here, instead of a level playing field moving forward. And that's what has to stop, sir. And I think that we may have to have some other legislators say to them, you know what, just not gonna happen. So.
No, thank you for that.
Mr. Abarca, I'm sorry.
As interesting as you might see it, they get it, and you have a great partner in many rural legislators, and we talked about it in our kind of planning meeting this afternoon. You have school districts that are the largest employers in some of these small communities. It's the backbone of the community, and it's extremely important for a whole host of reasons that people take pride in that in their local community, and they, good or bad, I'm not speaking ill of charter schools, they don't want them in their community. And I think until, in your position, I believe would be until we have a fair comparison of what's what, how the current system's even working, a lot of those rural legislators say, I don't want, until I know what this is, we have them, we've had them for 15 or 18 years, whatever it is, and we don't have anything to compare or to actually have an apples to apples comparison. I don't want to take the unknown essentially and bring it into my community. So you have a lot of great allies in with some of these rural Republicans in Missouri that agree with a lot of the things you probably think about that.
And I would also add to that, Mr. Washer Strom, that because of our district's ability to be invited to present, and we've done pretty much a session at MSBA the last 3 years. Mossborough, we've presented at that also. We've had an opportunity to have a lot of our rural counterparts come into the session and become educated. So there is a lot more alignment that we have with a lot of our rural educators. And I think the final piece is when Kelvin Adams and I, who's the St. Louis superintendent, presented to the State Board of Education this past semester, when we talked about some of the things that we're dealing with here in our 2 respective school districts, we also included some of the struggles that rural school districts have in that conversation with the state board. And so we understand that the struggle is the struggle. It's the struggle across a lot of districts that have similar issues like we have, whether it's inadequate funding, inability to hire qualified teachers, or not having a pipeline of teachers because of the situations that we live in. I think our rural counterparts clearly understand what the implications are, and it's a lot of the research that we've done just educating people. So I do want you to know that there is a lot more alignment than probably what we've had in the past.
Mr. Abarca?
I have two questions. So to make sure I understand, as a former charter school board member of one of the largest charter schools in Kansas City, are you saying we should go back and talk to some of my former colleagues and try and engage them in that process? Because I think what I'm at least seeing from my perspective is there are a few charter school leaders who are driving some of these conversations, and maybe there is an opportunity there for the charter school board members to have some engagement with us. Am I understanding that correctly?
I just always think dealing with some sort of statewide association versus dealing with somebody who is on the ground, who is going to deal with a shortage of state money or don't feel like they're getting their fair share, they're going to want to fix the problem versus some association that has a whole lot of interest to worry about when you can just deal with what your local interests are. And I think you're going to get a better work product and good faith out of that and dealing with them one-on-one versus somebody who, I don't know who it is, but somebody who's at the top of some random association that deals with those issues.
Sounds like you just appointed me to a committee. The second thing is, and this may be a question to either you all or Dr. Vidal, from the state legislature from Springfield area, did we engage the Springfield Public Schools to see if they can be a fighting champion for us as well? Because it seems that we have a partner there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, sitting through 45 education committee hearings between the House and the Senate each session, there are a lot of comparisons about some of the duplicative services and things like that because you do have a similar number of students as the city of Springfield. So you have a lot in common, and they have been right there on the front lines on a lot of these education issues. I can tell you their local senator who's from there, along with your folks here, are up on the floor filibustering some of these really disastrous bills. So they have done a good job of keeping their delegation and some of their most powerful members of the General Assembly educated and have them in a good place where they're fighting lockstep with where you guys are.
And to further back up that, I actually presented to their entire board at their board retreat a year ago. They actually called in and wanted us to present around at that time, what was called the ed landscape. And that was something that we also presented at the state conference. But they are fully aware of some of the implications. So we definitely have an ally in Springfield.
Yeah, one more comment, Chairwoman. I just want to say that I think that, it's very easy for a state representative to pick on someone who's not within their district, right? And when we have allies like this who can step up for us and say, wait a minute, they're not in our district, but we care about them because we're public schools too, that makes a big difference for somebody who's trying to go out on the limb and introduce legislation that maybe.
And I mean, just the realities of who is in the majority down in Jefferson City, the legislators that are elected from the Kansas City area, and who are in the positions of influence and power that just naturally you need those allies from around the state to get a seat at the table of just how the process, fortunately or unfortunately, works.
Thank you. I've had the benefit of seeing some of the collaborative relationship that you've helped us facilitate with both legislators, but I know that we have built collaborative networks through our other school district partners all across the state. We have worked very closely, and you have helped facilitate some of that conversation with other superintendents and administrative leaders. And so I think we really appreciate the work you're doing on our behalf, and we understand that we can't operate in isolation, that we are stronger when we have partners, and the more you can help us build that and expand that network of partners and strengthen it, the better we'll be. Dr. Vidal, do you have any other comments on this?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, are there any other questions? Thank you so much for coming to Kansas City, and keep us apprised and help us know what the right direction is. We are looking forward to the opportunity to engage with our legislative leaders, and thank you for your guidance in this matter.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. So, Dr. Vidal, I'll turn this back to you.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. I think we're ready to move forward under the superintendent's report. We have a video highlight with our summer school recap, followed up by a brief summer school update with Sharon Ahuna, and then we will move to our presentation with MCC. We have Dr. Beatty here, and we're very excited about that. The chancellor over all 5 schools or 5 colleges, I'm sorry, but we're happy to have you here, so we're extremely excited. So let's go with the video.
Kansas City Public Schools students went on an educational quest this summer. KCPS hosted Kansas City Public Schools students went on an educational quest this summer. KCPS hosted.
Okay. So obviously, we're having some technical difficulties. We will move on, and hopefully we'll be able to work that out, and we'll come back. But let's go with the update to the board. Sharon.
All right, thank you, Dr. Vidal, members of the board. We're happy to, as you kind of previewed, we're going to do a recap of summer school. As mentioned before, summer school's been retooled this summer, and we're super excited to give some results from that recap. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, hopefully. We tried to personalize learning this summer for our students. We wanted to make sure that they are engaged in our summer school activities instead of it just being, hey, we're extending our school year. We really wanted to feel like they were being present with something special and something innovative. So as we walk through some of this information, if you've got questions, please let me know. Just to look at our enrollment, it's really exciting to kind of come back to this piece of things. We had an anticipated enrollment of 6% increase. We also, looking at our numbers from last year, we were up 24% from our last year numbers. So we're really excited about our enrollment piece this year. And again, just to preface that a little bit, these are preliminary numbers. We don't have these back. We won't have these back from the state till probably sometime next month. When we look at our overall attendance, we ranged from, at our buildings, 75% up to 95% at our buildings. And again, if you look at our numbers at our Boys and Girls Club, they don't finish up till August 2nd. So those numbers are also preliminary, but that's really exciting as far as attendance. That means our students want to be there. They wanted to be at summer school. They attended at all of our buildings. This is exciting, and this is the reason I have my partner in crime with me tonight, Andrea Cook, who's from CIPD. We wanted to really highlight some of our experiences that we intentionally put in place for our students that really mirrored the Quest curriculum. Some of these pieces were engagements with partners that we already had in place, and some of these were new partnerships. And what we wanted to do is make sure that it really anchored that Quest curriculum and made it solidify with our students so that they not only remembered what they were we're doing in the classroom, but that was an extension of that classroom experience. So if you look through some of this list, it ranges from the School of Economics to the American Institute of Architects, Turn the Page KC. One that we really, really liked too was Prep KC, and we did a connector experience with a lot of our middle school and high school students. What that looked like was connecting them via either the internet or online experiences with a variety of either entrepreneurs, could be a professional in that area, and they got to interact for a variety of times and just all over the place, and it just made them really excited. We also had Truman Medical Center come in and work with our students in 6th grade on epidemics, which tied into what they were doing with fever, which was inside their curriculum. I'm going to let Andrea show you a video that she put together. Hopefully it will work. I don't know. That's kind of up in the air, obviously, from our prior experience. We're going to see if it works out for us. And I'm going to let Andrea speak to some of those classroom experiences that were very planned.
Hello, my name is Andrea Cook. I'm a part of the Curriculum and Instruction Department. Also, group is the Digital Learning Team. And what we do is teach teachers how to integrate technology into their curriculum. And so this year with Summer Quest starting, we had 2nd graders that were going to be 3rd graders. And for the first time, they would be using Chromebooks. So we went to every 3rd grade class within the district and taught those students how to use the Chromebooks effectively so that when they get to 3rd grade next year, they will be ready. That was one of the things that we did. Also, we went to every classroom within the district just to see exactly what was going on within the curriculum. So they actually followed the curriculum in elementary in the daytime, in the morning, and then in the afternoon they did the quest part of the curriculum. In the high schools, they also did NEPRIS. When they did NEPRIS, they would have, let's say if they had an algebra class, they would have someone who would come and would meet them via a Zoom conference, and that person would actually teach them why math was important in their particular profession. So those were the types of things that the students had to work with this summer.
Thank you, Andrea. Appreciate it. Again, kind of going back to some of the meat and potatoes of our, not only our walkthrough information, does our data match what we're asking, our teachers to do in the classroom? So I know that we touched on this a little bit last time that we met, but I wanted to bring this back to our attention. We had over 300 walkthroughs in our classroom by our principals, and in fact, 325. A couple of those things that I wanted to bring to the forefront of your attention on that is, are we conveying high expectations in our classrooms? I think that is very important, and overwhelmingly that data comes back as yes, we are. And the other piece of that too is that, are we student focused? Are we student centered with that engagement piece? Because going back to our main goal of Quest and retooling that whole Quest piece of things, and again, overwhelmingly the data says yes, we are. Again, if you walk through this, teachers creating a positive experience and overwhelmingly wonderful positive environment for our students, yes. The lessons and the tasks are emphasize a higher order thinking skills. So again, not only is it positive, but we are, asking them to do things that are new but exciting in our classrooms, and they're learning in that environment. One of the things we wanted to make sure is, again, we talked about power standards and pulling those. Are the things that we're going to ask them to do in those 17 days obtainable? One reflective piece that we looked at is that we looked at K through 2, and yes, when we look at our ELA and our math and our science data, yes, our students did learn those pieces. Reflecting back on our 3 through 6, we probably asked them a little bit too much, because looking at our data, it looks like we did not quite achieve what we set out to do. So reflectively, when we come back to our teams, we probably need to take a look at how we're mirroring that into our curriculum. High school course distribution. I wanted you to be able to take a look at some of our courses that our high school students are taking and just the distribution of that coursework. If you look at kind of our top 4 classes, it looks like Algebra 1, English 10, English 9, as well as Intro to Health and PE, which is to be expected. A lot of our students are wanting to get ahead with PE, health, and speech, but we do have some credit recovery courses that our students are working at, and that's that English coursework and that Algebra 1. So those are things that we need to take account for and take a look at and make sure that we're providing that on a continual basis into next year. This is the grade distribution for our upper levels as well. One of the things that you'll see and you'll notice is just the grade distribution itself, first semester and second semester. You'll notice that green section up there, the I, those are incompletes, and students can come back to that coursework if they want to pick that back up in the fall if they did incomplete that virtual course. One of the things that we want to think about too is, and I know that we've touched on this, is the length of our summer school. Did they have enough time to complete that coursework? And then just our reflective statements towards the end is that just our professional development attendance is, again, we did have a lot of subs in our classrooms, and part of that is that we want to make sure that all of our teachers are able to attend professional development and get what they need so that they can provide the high quality Quest curriculum that we're asking to. Staffing, we had a high increase in enrollment, kind of going back to what I said with that 6% increase toward the end. We had that 300 increase probably in that last week, right directly before we started. For us, staffing, that becomes difficult, and so we want to make sure that we provide a high-quality teacher in our classroom during summer school, just like we do during the school year. And so for us, looking at that next bullet, reviewing our enrollment timeline and how that impacts that timeline and hiring process. And then our final bullet is continuing to review our delivery model, curriculum, feedback from teachers and our students. And I think that we're continuing to do that, whether it's survey and bringing our teachers in and making sure that we're delivering that model and that model curriculum, going back to those standards. Are we asking our students to do what we need them to do in that short timeline? What questions do you have from Quest?
If I could,
Absolutely.
Back to that previous slide on enrollment, I think that's an area that I have a lot of concern, and it's not just for summer school, it's also prior to the school year. We tend to have a tremendous amount of families that will wait until the last minute to enroll students, and it really makes it difficult from a staffing standpoint on our principals. It also ends up resulting in us having classes that may be oversized because we weren't able to hire teachers in a timely manner. And it puts us at a disadvantage because then some of our parents get frustrated and they withdraw kids out because of the amount of choice. And I think that at some point we have to make a decision in this school district that part of it is you have to teach people how to treat you too. And if we say that there's a deadline around when things need to get done, once that deadline is, that's it. We can't continue to keep the window open, and then it puts us at a disadvantage. And so these are going to be some of the things that we're going to really push our community on being more proactive and getting things done in a timely manner to help us so we can better serve students. And it will take place not only with the regular school year, but also summer school. So I do agree 100% that that's something we have to do a better job of holding people accountable for.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Vidal. Questions? Dr. Jones and then Mr. Abarca?
So I had a quick question and a comment. So my question is, to what do you attribute in your analyses the reason that people delay something like summer school enrollment? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Great question. I think that they're looking at what are my choices, and I do think just even from a parenting standpoint, I do think it sneaks up on people. You have things at the end of the school year that are happening, and then, oh my goodness, summer is here. Now I've got to figure this out. I think part of it too is making sure that we as a school district make sure, and I know that we do a great job communicating, but what are our gaps there? What are still things that we could do better and improve, and making sure that we are clearly communicating that here's our timeline, here's our deadline, as Dr. Vidal just spoke about.
Yes, I totally agree with you. I think my personal experience and just what I see is people kind of trying to figure out what's all going on over the summer. And what can I do? What are the costs? Who looks like they have something splashy and exciting, something that's going to let my kid learn over the summer but still have a little bit of fun?
Absolutely.
And so as a parent making that decision for my own kids, one of the things that I felt like I was kind of at a loss for when I looked at the school district KCPS Quest program, like the video and sort of the experiences that you listed out, I didn't necessarily get that from the promotional material. And so I wound up going sort of a different thing. It's like, oh, well, I don't know, it might be like school, so let me try something different for the summer. And so I wonder if a lot of parents were thinking that. I think a lot of it is sneaking up on people and people just kind of procrastinating maybe. But I think some of it is, well, I don't really know what that's going to be about. So let me look at some other things. And so I would love to see, hopefully as y'all go forward with this for future years, that you take some of those experiences that you were able to lay out for this year and show people this is what we're doing. When we say Quest, this is what we mean. When we say STEM, this is what we mean. So,
Absolutely, I would agree, and I feel like now we will have some better promotional piece that we can now put forward. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I echo the concerns or opportunities, I guess, for more communication about the programs we offer. But this goes into the question I'm about to ask you. So as board members, what can we do to continue to support your efforts? What can we do to help you?
Awesome, great question, I appreciate that. I think it is just the voice of, we do have exciting things happening in KCPS Summer School. There are a lot of opportunities, we have a lot of partnerships, and we'll continue to expand those and provide opportunities for our students to learn, but in an exciting and adventurous way. So that voice would be amazing.
Your Twitter presence.
Yeah. Yes, yes, that'd be, thank you.
During the summer session, how many students signed up for the MOCAP program of online courses?
I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I'd be happy to get them for you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We actually don't have any students who are enrolled in MOCAP program during the summer or the regular school year at this time. Our students enroll in our virtual program, which provides them the same opportunities, but provides the funding stream and local control back to the school district. So our students at the high school level participated in all virtual courses this summer with a blended model and a true virtual model, but none of those were MOCAP courses. MOCAP courses are run through the state, and we don't send our students out there unless they specifically were to request a MOCAP course. Otherwise, we have virtual courses in our district that we either pay for through our OdysseyWare program or through our partnership with Launch that meet the requirements of the law that we use for our virtual program. We're mandated to have it as an available, just like we were mandated to have MOVIP. MOCAP just replaced MOVIP, but we don't have to place our students in that. We place our students in whatever is in the best interest of the student, which is what the law reads. And the best interest of the student is usually to have them with a local teacher. If at a time a person were to come to us and say that it would be better for them to be with a MOCAP course, we definitely would follow our flow chart and we would then place them into a MOCAP course. But to this time, we've been able to meet all of our students' needs locally through the courses that we offer through our OdysseyWare or our Launch programs, and both of those are supported under the law and through the MOCAP program.
And I will say that the state gives you an approved menu of vendors that you can utilize. And
Correct.
I know even with some of our school districts, they've kind of latched onto Springfield, who has their own program that they utilize, which gives them a lot more local control. But there's a lot of other school districts that have also tapped into their virtual school program also.
Which is the launch program that we use, because the law, the Senate bill also allows you to use another LEA, which is Springfield. And so we have a provider that we use, which is Odysseyware, and we have an LEA that we use, which is the Springfield launch model. So having a student go to the MOCAP route is not necessarily in the best interest of the student, because it removes all of our ability to help that student locally. Right now, our students are able to come in and meet with us when they're virtual students as well, so we're able to provide them support right here within the district. We actually have a lot of students in our virtual program.
Thank you. Jennifer Wolfsey.
It's funny we're mentioning Springfield. I'm going to suggest to you, 3 years ago at Missouri School Boards Association, Springfield actually rebranded their entire summer program, much like you guys tried to do, trying to get it out of everybody thinking of it as remedial and only. They would be a great resource for you guys to talk to. I'll dig through my notes for the names, but I'm sure Dr. Vidal can put us in touch with them, but you should chat with them.
It's so funny you said that, because
Let you
that's
answer that.
no, sorry,
Yeah.
no,
No,
you,
go ahead.
I don't want to steal your thunder.
No, you can have it.
No, it's so funny. No, that's exactly what Dr. Harrison did, and with CIPD, and took them down there, and that's where the rebranding happened, and that's where it kind of sprang from.
And it's our first year really starting to work on trying to replicate some of the practices there, but also making it work for our school district. So, but definitely, we sent the team to Springfield, and they spent time looking at their summer school design, because we did not want to approach it from this punitive mindset. But I do 100% agree with you, Dr. Jones, that we can work on how we market it and promote it, and make sure that there's clarity around what these programs are designed to do.
Ms. Cortez?
Thank you very much for the time, and it's exciting to see kind of the advancement of the summer program. How to use this microphone. There we go. I'm kind of a technology troglodyte, sorry. So two things. Number one, kind of to follow up on Dr. Jones's comment, you've got 5,000 kids who went through the summer program. That may be your best marketing force, right? Converting, having them share those experiences and figuring out a way to communicate that, throughout the school year so that they become your enrollment sales force. The second thing, with the students, the high school students who have those incompletes, is there an internal follow-up process with those students to kind of get them back on track, keep them on track so that they finish those courses? And
Yes, we're working on that right now, absolutely, because we want them to complete their coursework, because they were in that course for either a reason, either A, they wanted to get ahead, or B, they did need it for recovery, so absolutely.
okay.
And we do have, I don't know if you want to speak to this, Dr. Shepard, but we do have schools that really focus on the blended model. Teachers that can work with students around credit recovery throughout the school year. So there are opportunities for students before and after school, and in some cases, in some of our schools, they even build a support period. Not all, but some will build a support period where students can go and get some acceleration or get some recovery through our virtual school program. And so I don't know if we want to speak to that, but that's also going to be how we keep up with the ones that re-enroll back into the school district.
We actually have rebranded our they used to be called Grad Labs, then they became SOAR programs, and now they're Grad Labs again, but they have a whole new meaning now. And with our new Grad Lab coaches, one of the things that we're getting ready to roll out for the school year is the ability for those people to work with students after school, before school, and in those kind of different spaces, as well as during the day. So we will be able to have an even bigger virtual presence, as well as a time for students to recover credit in real time. So students can work not only on this, so they could be enrolled full time, but then they could work on, I didn't finish this class because I needed to finish 2 units. Well, they can finish those 2 units and still pick up that credit, or maybe they're falling behind in their classwork right now, so they can recover some credit to stay on track. So we actually have a whole process that we've developed that we're working on around that. I'm taking us totally off track, I'm sorry, but it is a really exciting initiative, I think, that we have, where we're rebranding this and how we're building that process together. And we have that going on at all of our 4 comprehensive high schools, and then we're working with the others on how we can make that work in their systems as well. So yes, we do have that, and we're pushing that through. And then one of the other things then through that process is we're developing a graduation PLC process. And so professional learning community. And so through this, then this team, principals, counselors, registrars, attendance, drip committee, I'm sure I'm forgetting people, but a group of people are coming together, and they're actually looking at graduation rates in real time, so that when we get to project graduation, it's not a surprise. We know exactly who's going to walk across the stage and what's going to happen. And so we have a collaborative process that's happening across several of our departments, and my team kind of headed that up and has started building this process together. But then we're all coming together. We actually had a really great team building today to kind of start just getting to know one another, so that as we engage in this work, because it's going to be hard work, but as we engage in this work and what we're about to do, that we can really get in there in this space and move kids and help them to cross that finish line. So I think we have some really amazing things. I'm getting the goosebumps telling you about it. So we have some amazing things that I think are really going to make some big change for kids.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Abarca?
I'm back. I think Rita probably sparked this interest, and please, I'm not an educator, so educate me on this. I remember back in my high school experience, I participated in at least a month full of band. Like, I feel like I was there all summer long. Are there opportunities to include any type of fine arts or even some advanced coursework here, kind of expanding our repertoire? I feel like some of these, they are supplemental to some extent, but they're not really on the further end of stretching some of our advanced side.
First of all, I feel like you're exaggerating the month. I mean, maybe it's, but that's totally fine. Maybe it's because it was a little while ago. That's totally okay. But yes, yes. And so, so there are some opportunities for engaging with some more fine arts. And I think part of that too is speaking, as to Dr. Harrison's point, with some of our virtual learning experiences that we have, and we've expanded with Launch. Rolling into next year, we will have some more opportunities, because there is obviously a more robust opportunity with coursework there. So that is on the forefront of what we are thinking about. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. And more opportunity for dual credit with that as well, which is very exciting.
And we do offer some rigorous course offerings, and I can tell you for certain, I know that we've had both years small groups of students that may have wanted to take calculus or something of that nature during the summer with a physical teacher. But we also have, if you look at this list here, offering physics, offering pre-calc, there are some more rigorous courses that are also available for our students to take advantage of during the summer. You have to keep in mind, I remember the first year that I was here, the first summer. Well, after my first year going into that second summer, and my daughter, we weren't offering original credits like that. My daughter had to go to some private school on the Kansas side to do original credits. So, to catch up in one of her math courses that she didn't get to take because of the transition from Maryland to here. But we now offer all of that for our kids, where they can do it right on site and it doesn't cost them a penny. Just need to show up. So we have made a lot of advancements around original credit. And I will say this to you, and I'm done because we want to move to our MCC presentation. A lot of our students generally will take and knock out a lot of their elective courses during the summer for original credit, and that's done purposely because they want to spend their time with a live teacher taking those advanced placement and some of those IB level courses because that's, you know, you need more time. Virtual school's not going to necessarily help you with that kind of rigor over the computer unless you're an outlier and just a super smart kid. And we have some, but most of us, we tend to be average, and we need to be around a teacher that can work and help us through those rigorous courses.
Absolutely, you need the seat time with those, absolutely. Yeah. Any other questions?
Dr. Vidal, I just wanted to say thank you for this presentation. I'm impressed with the growth in summer school and with the expansion of that. I have one quick question. Is the walkthroughs, are you using the same tool that you use during the regular academic year, the assessment tool that you're using for walkthroughs and observations?
Very great question as well. No, we're mirroring part of that,
Okay.
but because it is such an abbreviated time frame, so it is part of the TMTP, some of those tools are involved in it, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
These acronyms.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry. No more acronyms. Okay.
All right, Madam Chair, I think we're ready now. Dr. Beatty, I will have you come up, and I know you have some guests here also before we do this presentation that you introduce, and I'll come up and be right side by side with you. So we're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, I was going to call you trustees, directors, for giving us the opportunity to be here. We're really excited about this partnership, and I would like to introduce the team that has come to join me. First, Dr. Tom Meyer, who is the president of the Blue River and Business and Technology Campus. Then we have Dr. Daugherty, who is our chief academic officer. And then we have Dr. Lee, who is president of the Penn Valley campus. And next to her, I have two of our trustees, Trustee Ellen Martin and Trustee C.J. Adams, and this is Trustee Adams' district. And then we have Miss Garcia, who is our general counsel. Did I miss anybody else? Darn, I was trying to memorize it in my head. The seating chart. Dr. Chriselle, who is our Chief Financial Officer. So I want to thank them for their hard work that everybody has put into this project. I want to thank my trustees for their support and for being here. And again, thank you for the opportunity to present. My name is Kimberly Beatty, and I am proud to be the Chancellor at Metropolitan Community College, and I just completed 2 years of service in that role. And we've gone through tremendous change at Metropolitan Community College, but it's all to position us to do what we have penned the path forward for Metropolitan Community College. And so what I wanted to do is take this opportunity to not only present to you the opportunity to partner with you, but to show you how that's a puzzle piece in a larger vision that we have for the college. So I wanted to familiarize you with the college a little bit. We are one college with 5 campuses: the Penn Valley campus, Maple Woods campus, Longview, Blue River, Business and Technology, and we have a robust online. We have 3 presidents and administrative structures at the district and on those campuses, and a chancellor to oversee all of those. Okay, I wanted to. Is somebody clicking for me? Is somebody doing that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like, wait a minute now.
And they'll take care of it.
Okay, all right. So wanted to highlight some of the challenges that I've come to learn about here in the Kansas City region. One, the employers in Kansas City area continue to struggle to identify local talent to fill industry needs. And I want to back up a little bit. Part of the vision, once I came to Kansas City, saw the gem of the city and saw the gem of the college, realized that Metropolitan Community College has a lot of good workforce and academic programs, but given how the campuses and where they're located, it really limits the access and equity of those resources, especially in the inner core. And then as I've met with all of the CEOs in the city, this is the challenge that we face in terms of filling the industry pipeline. By 2027, we know that 73% of the jobs in Kansas City are going to require some type of post-secondary credential. So some of the challenges with Kansas City Public Schools and your programs?
Yeah, absolutely. We shared some of these items with you previously, and I wanted to make sure that as we had our conversations with MCC, there are new things that came up in our discussions, and I think as we go through this presentation, when we get towards the end, you'll receive this timeline around some of the actions that we're asking the board to consider as we try to get to a point where we can enter into some type of formal agreement. But some of the challenges that we talked about in really trying to grow our CTE programs, you know, we have a history here in our school district where business sector turned their backs on us. And I think that there has been a revitalization of that, in particular with the work that myself and Dr. Beatty have done, both of us now serving on the Chamber of Commerce board and being invited to be at the table to really advocate on behalf of our organizations has really created, I think, a level of excitement that I think this city has been looking for in this type of discussion. So we think that some of those challenges have contributed to access to industry professionals for teaching and instruction, underutilized facility intended for career and technical programs. We know right now, with the time that this current board has and the time and the shelf life that many of us in here have as administrators and employees, if we don't do something bold and something that's very intentional to really take full advantage of that space, we'll never be able to fill up the amount of square footage that's not being utilized right now at Manual Tech. And we want to take full advantage of that to use this in terms of being a value add, not just for the students that we serve, but for the adults within the community. And so we know that that's a major issue that we're having right now, providing all of our students with access to dual credit and internship opportunities. But that also requires that we are doing our part at a much earlier phase to prepare our students to be successful when they take AccuPlacer. If they are successful at AccuPlacer, having this partnership now opens up so many more opportunities for dual enrollment where students will be on this shared campus, and I think it helps us with some of the goals within our strategic plan that we'll review a little bit later. And then also eliminating the travel time to post-secondary sites to receive training for high-level jobs. We have all of this in this one hub, and it's a centrally located facility. It really does now help eliminate some of the inefficiencies that we tend to have and some of the barriers that transportation often provides to people in our community.
Thank you, Dr. Vidal. So what we also know, another challenge we have is that there is a leaky pipeline. Out of the ninth graders that start, only 24% complete a degree. That's a startling number, 24%, and that's in 150% of the time, and that's a typical metric in higher ed, you know, so if it's supposed to take 2 years to do a degree, so that's in 3 years of the time. So those are the challenges that exist. So I think I'm going to ask the man behind the curtain to just click for me because I am struggling with the clicker. So the vision for the vision forward for MCC is to really better position the college to realize the vision that we have. And if you wouldn't mind giving each one of the trustees one of our strategic plans, and making a formidable investment in the institution's infrastructure by increasing greater access and equity for our future students in the area.
So we've shared this with you all before, and I think as we continue to go through this, it's important for anybody that joins us live stream or that's attending one of our board meetings and haven't had an opportunity to see this. This is simple for us. It aligns with MSIP 5 college and career readiness goals. It aligns with our strategic plan, Goal 4, Goal 5, and also Pillar B. We recognize that schools can't do it alone, so this potential partnership with MCC will help us to accomplish what we need to do within our strategic plan goals. And then also Board Policy 1.3, making sure that we're doing what we need to do to be engaged in the improvement of their community. So that also, once again, goes back to what I said earlier. It's not only just about the students, it's also about the adults, and it's about having a model that will help to create upward mobility within the workforce in a very accessible manner.
So I wanted you to have the strategic plan so that you see our vision and mission and highlighted on the first page, that we plan to be a high-performing institution that is learning-centered, affordable, and aligned around student success. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But our primary mission in preparing students, serving communities, and creating opportunities. And this partnership allows us to do that. So what Metropolitan Community College has done so far is we conducted a strategic location and planning study. We had 4 questions associated with that study. What's the optimal distance between our educational campuses? What's the optimal size of a campus, both in terms of the number of students and physical space? And are there identifiable areas where research suggests that a campus or center should be located? And are there any existing MCC properties not located strategically given any objective considerations? So I knew coming in with fresh eyes, and I could see that there were some challenges where our programs, the bulk of our workforce programs and academic, that hub at the Business and Technology Center were located. I could see some challenges, but I did want to do some objective research and have the data so that I could present some responsible data to the board and recommendations. Based upon this study, we learned that we are not that the programs and where they're currently located aren't maximized by the community and the students that could potentially utilize them. And then we also know that the space that where they are currently located is not maximized. So then what is the path forward? It is, drum roll, please. No, I'm just kidding. So in this path forward, there's a framework with 3 primary goals, and I gave you the strategic plan so that you could see how each one of these goals is actually supported by one of our primary pillars in the plan. Our first pillar, the strategic theme of student success. We hope with the path forward, this larger plan again, is to align programs with current industry needs, increase diversity, access, and equity to existing workforce programs, and enhance and align existing facilities with the 21st century teaching and learning environment. So if you look in the plan under student success, B through F, all 5 of those objectives are hit with this partnership specifically as a small piece of this path forward. This will create the opportunity for us to implement pathways to promote student retention, progress, and completion. It'll create credit and non-credit opportunities that align with the industries in Kansas City. It'll close achievement gaps for underrepresented students through intentional use of data and robust support mechanisms for students like career navigators and those types of things. Identify and remove institutional barriers like transportation to student completion, and identify strategies to increase job placement and transfer opportunities for students. So that's what we hope to accomplish with our path forward, and I think those specifically hit this plan that we have that we want to present to you today. So the key of those 3 goals, the first one really focuses on the institute model. You may be familiar with a national term called the Center of Excellence, and that's the, for lack of a better phrase, sexy phrase that everybody is using nationally. And I told our team, I said, we don't have to call them centers of excellence because we already have them. It's called institutes. If you've ever been, and I would invite you to come and take a tour of our Health Sciences Institute that's located right on Broadway. We have a Public Safety Institute out at our Blue River campus. So the goal here is to build upon the institute model, which is really a cluster of programs so that are aligned around a certain set of pathways. So the institute model will include, we're striving toward an agriculture institute, a construction and manufacturing institute, And we already have automotive programs. We want to make that more comprehensive to add, to increase it, to add auto body and diesel. I was feeling Dr. Chriselle telling me that in my ear. Diesel to our existing automotive program. So to be specific and pointed to where we're going in this partnership with Kansas City Public Schools, it would be for our Construction and Manufacturing Institute. So the proposed Manufacturing Institute would be at the Manual Career and Technical Center. This is some of the work that we have done already is working with architectural firms to do test fitting with the existing facility to see if the programs as they operate now at the Business and Technology campus would fit in the space that's available in the Manual Tech building. And these are the drawings that they have come up with for that site. So what we would accomplish, I'm sorry, it is 7 o'clock, a little late. 8, okay, yeah. We both were at, oh no, mine is tomorrow, so I totally understand. And we both were at a 7 a.m. breakfast together this morning, so we've had a long one, I'm sorry. So what we hope to accomplish here is that we would have the opportunity to have some shared resources and create that cluster of programs around manufacturing and construction. There'd be opportunities to learn across disciplines. It optimizes learning pathways and deepens our partnership with Kansas City Public Schools. Again, in this proposed Manufacturing Institute, it would create greater access because it's located right on the bus line near 2 major freeways. It brings strong workforce programs to the urban core, which is really a big passion of mine, and I know my board members share that passion. Contributes to the workforce pipeline, and it increases pathways to gainful employment and workforce certifications, because right now, unfortunately, KCPS has a 30% college going rate, and I think with this plan, we could increase that college going rate. So the benefits of this partnership is that it would increase enrollment for both entities based upon the offerings that we have. This creates more expansive variety for the students. Centrally located campus for all of the Kansas City community. It streamlines the educational setup for industry partners. It's a seamless transition for our students from secondary into post-secondary, and there's earlier exposure and opportunities for the students. I'm sorry, I did nod to you.
So ultimately, we want, and I said this from day one, that it was a vision of mine to have every single one of our students be able to graduate with some sort of completer. We call it one or more industry recognized credentials. And we want to make sure that our kids have those opportunities to matriculate into those particular pathways. This potential partnership will help accelerate that at a very fast rate. We talk about the equity in transportation. You've heard a lot about that. We really want to produce students who will be able to enter into high-paying careers in the Kansas City community. And we also want to really increase our partnerships with industry and community members for mentorship, internship, and or skill building opportunities. And like I said, if we have this one central location where a lot of the business sector understand that this is where you can do, and it's almost a one-stop shop, it just makes it a lot easier to navigate around. It also will work with some of the collaboration activities that we're trying to do with some of our charter counterparts, because some of our charter counterparts are already taking advantage of some of the elective courses that we offer at Manual Tech. So this opens up the door, too, for additional collaboration that benefits this city.
So some of the shared programming, this is programming that we would be offering at the site. You see those listed there. They all are related to manufacturing and the construction trades. We have apprenticeship pathways also that would be at this campus. These are some of the pathways that that currently exist now that we offer. So how do we make this happen? We have some shared ideas that I will highlight for you. The one is that there are a lot of fundraising opportunities. Dr. Vidal and I have already had several conversations with industry partners. I won't mention by name because I know this is fairly public, but I know I've talked with one industry partner that's already made some guarantees of equipment and people in terms of, because this enrollment thing, it was interesting hearing your challenges with enrollment. We have some of those same challenges, but I anticipate that this is an opportunity where we're automatically going to need some of those bodies and professionals in these skilled trades. And some of the people that we've talked to have already talked about doing some of those things. And I feel very confident with the conversations that we've already had preliminarily about the opportunity of dollars from these industry partners as well. I mean, they're salivating and chomping at the bits about this opportunity. I'm presenting to our board an in-depth, broader plan. We've been talking about this for 6 months, though, but we're doing an open session presentation as well. Tomorrow, I'm presenting to the chamber. I've already presented at KCADC. So the buzz is already around the city about what the potential impact could be. And so there are a lot of people who have already approached us about those types of partnerships. So a fundraising campaign, especially with our industry partners, helps us to, first of all, build a stronger relationship with our industry partners and regain, I'm going to use that word, regain some confidence in what we're doing, because they're all saying, okay, we need more people, and more in the pipeline, and even still, we're not going to always meet that demand. But this fundraising and working with industry, it deepens that relationship and helps to get that confidence with the industry that we will need. It'll help us to increase diversity and access and equity of all our programs and students if we are able to get, for example, scholarship dollars, because there are also companies. There's another big engineering firm that I've already talked to. Those are the type of opportunities that they want to provide for our students. And it'll also give us an opportunity to make an investment and potentially offset any other funding plans that happen with the district. And I think those are the things. We also have some big public and private partnerships. We've been working closely with the Kauffman Foundation and some other companies. And again, the Kauffman Foundation has approached us about developing a non-credit track, which is good not only for students, but also parents, and getting them an opportunity to get a quick credential. When we offer things on the non-credit side of the house, that gives maybe short-term, like a CNA certification opportunity that would then map directly into a LPN or some other health science type of field, just giving that as an example. So we're talking and tossing around some opportunities there as well. So I guess we jointly can, we won't say it in unison, so I know, that would have been cute, huh? Yeah. So our recommendation to both of the boards would be that we enter into a partnership agreement so that we can begin the work that needs to take place to make this happen. And that would later result in a long-term lease at Manual Tech for a manufacturing institute.
So as we prepare to close out, one of the things that we learned as we were having these discussions with MCC was that we were being a bit aggressive earlier, and as we begin to talk about the MOU development and what needs to go in there, we realized that coming to the board and asking the board to take action on that today would have been very difficult. Our ultimate goal is to try to get both of our boards to a yes vote on this project, but we also realize that there's a lot of things that need to be done in between, and so this timeline that we're going to share with you, it doesn't change pretty much anything around the anticipated date of being able to open up in 2021. Is it 21? 21. because these were things we were going to do anyhow, but rather work on doing these in small chunks, keeping our boards fully aware of where we are, and then coming back to our boards at some point later on in the semester. And I know for us, probably sometime in January, and I'll go over that, for an actual formal vote on a lease agreement. So that gives us multiple months to continue to collaborate and develop our MOU, which our district attorneys are doing a phenomenal job of, in addition to Linda and some of the other folks here that's present. So ultimately for the 14th, which is the upcoming board meeting, we want to ask our board to consider this consideration of a partnership agreement for expanded exploration of the project. And here's the things that we're asking the board to move forward with, allowing us to continue to do this work. Release of RFQs for architect and construction management services. This will allow for final design and costing of the project. This will allow for pursuit of industry and financial support, as you heard from Dr. Beatty. Keep in mind that we've already started getting some support letters from industry leaders, and both of us are working on that so that we can also demonstrate to both of our boards that there is interest across this city for a project of this nature. It allows for debt instrument design and debt costing, because as we stated to you in the last board meeting, this is an opportunity, or when we had our meeting with Dr. Lee and I both presented, that this would potentially be a long-term agreement where MCC would be leasing, but the district would assume the debt on this project, and then over X amount of years that will be paid off, and it'll be articulated in our MOU with MCC having an opportunity to make sure that they're in that facility on a long-term basis, that they get their fair share of value add out of these investments. And we think that it's a potential win-win for both institutions. It allows for continued exploration of dual credit and other aligned program opportunities at Manual Tech. So just because this is what we're sharing with you now doesn't mean that we're not able to go out and engage our students, both the high school students and the university students, around what are some other things that we believe we can add to make sure that we have robust offerings. We have a tremendous amount of space in that building, and in our collaboration, we have opportunities to continue to grow this partnership over at Manual Tech. And as I've stated, allow for continued exploration of industry collaboration and support. As we continue to move forward, September 2019, we would want to come back to our Board of Education to consider contracts for architect and construction management services. These will have fee contingencies because of based on the final project approval and final lease agreement approval in January. So there is some risk, because if we decide, or the board decide right now, when we get to that point, this is not something we want to enter into, then I think both institutions will have some costs that we would have to eat in terms of looking at these architect and construction management services. October 2019, instructional pathways, collaboration, and enhanced offerings, industry collaboration and support. That's a lot of what we're working on right now as we're going out and having these conversations and also doing these presentations. And then November 19th would be an update on the final project design and cost estimates. And then as we move into January 2020, administration final recommendation of partnership and long-term lease agreement, debt instrument approvals, construction contract approvals, and hopefully at that point we've convinced both of our respective boards that this is a great initiative, and people within the community that we would get started with the construction and then be ready to open this up in August of 2021, which is where the actual lease agreement would begin. So that's basically a timeline, and we're ready to open the floor up for some additional questions.
Mr. Hogan?
Hi. Thank you for the presentation. So I'm super excited about this, but I know we've got a long way to go too, right? There's a lot of work to do, and I know we're going to have a whole bunch of updates between now, as you just outlined in the timeline, Dr. Vidal. So I won't belabor you with a ton of questions because we're going to have plenty of opportunity to ask some of them. So, but I do have a couple of questions. So in looking at sort of the existing pathways, automotive, manufacturing, and construction being sort of the core ones, What's interesting to me is that what I don't see in there is any sort of technical related pathways, which is really sort of the wave of the future, and thinking about like computer science sort of pathways, et cetera. And I'd hate to see us shortchange our kids by not providing that. Those are higher income jobs. They're always going to be here for forever, really, at this point. And so it'd be interesting to get your feedback on, are we not hearing that there's a need for some of that from industry? Because I think about things like Cisco certifications, Microsoft certifications, et cetera. And we've got Cerner here, we've got Sprint here, right? There's a lot of tech, and particularly in the startup space in Kansas City. So I'm curious why nothing in the computer science space?
Thank you for that question. We do a lot in the computer science, and we actually, as a part of our Public Safety Institute, we have a cybersecurity. So you're right, they graduate with a 2-year degree in cybersecurity from us, and they make $60,000 plus.
Yeah.
So the institute model, how I've envisioned this, and how the team, I should say, has envisioned this, that we would have a hub. So the hub for manufacturing and construction would be at Manual Tech, and the hub for public safety is going to be at Blue River. But as demand increases, then we would create these nodes where there might be offerings at other locations as we grow those programs. But there's always, that's the whole idea of a center of excellence or institute model, that the hub of it sits in one location. And so duplicating the program at another location, depending on the program, as I'm sure you can be aware, given the business that we're all in, can be costly and expensive. Sure. So the idea with all of the institutes that we're thinking about as we move into the future. So for example, with agriculture might be at one campus, but there might be an urban agriculture node of that gets developed over at the Penn Valley campus, because agriculture is not thought of to be at Penn Valley, it might be out at Maple Woods. So that same possibility in the future could happen at the Manual Tech site, but right now that's not the immediate plan for that site.
And keep in mind, as I've stated previously, this is part of the partnership. The district is still working on the work that we're doing with Donna Deeds, and we're part of a cohort of school districts that are looking at real-world learning opportunities that really address what you're talking about. Rashawn has created a multi-year plan that we're looking at that we want to continue to build on, whether it's some CAPS type program that deals with technology or whatnot. But we're also working, so even when you hear Dr. Beatty mention that this is a part of a piece of a puzzle, that's the same for us. This partnership just opens up some of those other opportunities, but part of the reason why we requested some additional FTEs for CTE was around the things that we need to design within our own school system that also helps to capture some of what you're talking about. We've been having conversations with Train and the innovative way that HVAC is being taught. A lot of it is now really modern with this technological approach. That's one of the companies that's interested in really partnering with the school district on some of these projects. So we also have our plans that we're working on internally around before this opportunity even came about, where we're looking at redesigning what we're going to be offering and making sure that it's more relevant and technologically advanced. But this just also helps accelerate us as a part of our puzzle that we're working on also as a district.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you.
Go ahead. You here?
I'm sorry, Mr. Barca?
Well, I just wanted to add that we did at Project Lead the Way at our elementary schools and building it out at our middle schools and our high schools, and that is a technology pathway so that students can be able to access higher level technology skills. And we are starting kids in kindergarten with just the project solving skills. So I think if you were to go and see some of our Project Lead the Way classes, you could see that they're beginning to gather those skills that they need in order to be able to now, although the MCC site may not focus on technology, do know that at Manual, we will still have part of Manual, and we are still looking at building out technology as a pathway and manual. We're looking at, and we offer computer science as an AP course as well. So there are things that we're doing because we do know that students do need access to technology pathways.
Thank you.
I'll add to that. That's great to hear, because hearing that is the potential, and that creates a path that we can stack on to if that already exists there. But I don't want to use my slang, but I am, because I'm tired. Out the gate, in starting with it, that isn't the plan. But when you already have a curriculum pathway working, then we can definitely build on that. That makes it a lot easier. So I'm glad to hear that.
Which is also a part of what we're going to be asking you to approve, those laptops as a part of our technology plan for Project Lead the Way in a few minutes. Tie that one in.
Yeah.
Well, first off, I mean, I applaud the effort completely from the both of you and your entire team here, because it truly is something that's going to be very innovated within the region and be very beneficial to our kids, parents, families, community as a whole. So kudos there. I think to my colleagues mentioned, I think it's also important to note that within the competitive market of higher ed, some of that already exists in the Innovation Center, right? In the Lee Summit's Innovation Campus.
Yeah,
so it wouldn't behoove us to duplicate that necessarily when that kind of already exists. So.
There's an equity issue from a transportation perspective.
That point well taken. The question I do have, though, is using the Summit Center model, are we pursuing the same types of funding sources from the governor, who's obviously very interested in workforce, CDBG from the city, some of these other grants, potentially earmarks from somebody that I know, trade unions, things like that can help support some of this?
Yes. In fact, what's that deadline, Dr. Chriselle, the August 1st? Oh, next week. I've still got a bit to do with that. The governor's office has now what they call Mo-Excel dollars, and the proposal that we are submitting is for a manufacturing institute, and the total dollars, for that proposal that we're submitting. Yeah, 27 million. And so what that will do is provide the freshest and newest and most innovative equipment and all of the resources that we may need for that. And the faculty have an idea of creating, I call it the microbrewery type of approach, where from the beginning of the line to the end of a manufacturing line, imagine encased in glass, and people can watch and see, and students are working at the same time, and that gives them the practical hands-on learning experience to do so. So we're submitting a proposal. We also submitted it in this last session. They, I think, had set aside $50 million, if I'm remembering correctly, $50 million, and then they and we made the list, and then they reduced the dollar figure, and then people were funded less. So you ask for what you need and see what you get. And so that's one of the resources that we're tapping into right
Chancellor
away.
Beatty, I thought you were going to go into the agricultural component there, the brew making and things like that. I was willing to try that out for you. But the other element is, I think it's important that we inform our Barget and Associates team as well that
Yes.
that's something we probably should be supportive of.
And they also work for MCCA. The other thing I wanted to mention is that Dr. Vidal and I both are from Texas, and they have what we call the early college high school model. And what I think is an opportunity here for us to work toward is a career and technical early college high school and I don't know that exists anywhere in the state. And where it just focuses on the career and technical education. The early college high school model is where you scaffold curriculum from 9th grade into 12th grade, which is similar to the model that's in Lee Summit. And that would be a unique opportunity that we could grow toward as we develop and partner together. as I was watching the presentation about summer school, Dr. Lee and I we could be offering things in summer school so the opportunities, there's just expanded opportunities. We now have Early College Academy at the Penn Valley campus, but we're not doing any dual credit, dual enrollment type of work, which is unfortunate. And with this being right on site and students being bused, or I guess the busing system and how that would work and using that as an opportunity, it creates, because not only are we offering the career and technical courses, we're planning to offer general education courses as well. So students who want to get those transfer type of courses have the opportunity to do that. In summer school, when you're offering English 12, all we have to do is articulate that credit, and that can be getting credit not only for English 12, but also getting college freshman English credit. So those are opportunities that I think, because transportation can be a barrier, that open up more opportunities for your students.
Ms. Cortez?
So, Dr. Beatty, talking about kind of data-driven decisions.
Yes.
Could you share with us why manufacturing? When you look out on the horizon, is there some data that you might be able to share with us, not necessarily tonight, but in the course of the next week, couple weeks? What are the projections for this metro area, and where do we see those jobs? And
yeah, I can certainly share that with you, but I can also, I've been doing quite a few presentations on this industry. I can also tell you that I believe that number is about 56% within the next 10 years, because we have a baby boomer population that are in those jobs, and there's nothing behind them. And so Honeywell, we do all the training for Honeywell and their tool and die and so forth, and they are just, they're hiring 400 people. I think he told me 400 people either monthly there's this huge number of people that they need. And the governor looked at me eyeball to eyeball and said, Cerner, as another example, I know that wasn't manufacturing, but when he looked at me eyeball to eyeball, these are companies, the large companies here in the manufacturing, Ford and so forth, they're having to go outside of Missouri, which is what our governor does not want to happen. And so he looked at me and said, okay, what are you going to do? And what's the plan, and how are you going to help us with this? I can get you that specific data, but those are based upon the conversations that I've had with the CEOs, whether it's Ford, Honeywell, LMV Magna up north, all of those manufacturing companies, the big issue is 50% of their workforce are in that baby boomer range, and they already are seeing the retirements, and there's nothing behind them. Now, we're not going to solve that with Manutech. And I don't even want to create that illusion. But what we are doing is creating an opportunity for your students and our students. This is not, and I don't want to create the facade that this is just for the Kansas City Public School students as well. We have a program and a college to run, and we want to have hundreds of sections of these courses going on. But it does, start to nick and make some progress in what the industry needs.
Thank you, Dr. Beatty. And I appreciate my colleague's question, because I think it was one of the things that I'm trying to wrap my head around. I'm familiar with the Health Science Institute. I've toured that institute before, so I've seen how that model works. And so I think it will be valuable for us to understand the power and the concentration of, why that field, and how does that fit in with other workforce trends that we're seeing in the metro area, and other kinds of future job trends data that Mid-America Regional Council and others are sort of studying. My question, I think, is really maybe for both of you, Dr. Vidal. The proposal that you're going to bring to us on the 14th is really authorizing the two parties to go forward in a deep exploration. I understand there will be some costs associated with that. When you undertake that kind of an exploration, it naturally incurs costs. Have you built in any sort of period or time point where you would, in that exploration, say the cost or concept is going to exceed what we believe is reasonable or financially feasible? Are you building any trigger or decision points in? Or is it really, because it's an exploration, but it's an exploration, but then you will come to us at a future point, potentially in January, for the next significant action?
No, I think that's a great question, and as I'm sitting here talking to Linda, I don't think that we have advanced that far in our conversation yet in terms of what would be a particular financial pain point, but that's something that we'll go back and as we continue to have our conversations, talk about what that potentially looks like and be ready to discuss that with the board on the 14th.
Thank you.
Mr. Hogan?
I just pulled a Rita. Just to kind of further clarify your point, as I understand it, based on your timeline, is that initial sort of cost piece, the at-risk piece, before we decide whether or not we're going to do, is basically for sort of high-level design to better understand what the overall cost of the project will be. So it should be in the grand scheme of things, a really small and nominal cost. We're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to go do design work, potentially. Right.
Yeah,
if we're talking about a $25 million partnership.
I know I can't remember the exact number, but we did talk.
And I don't need the exact number, but it should be a small percentage of the overall project that we're talking about, right?
Right, and fortunately, Metropolitan, we've done some. It's halfway down the road.
Could I address that?
Third of the road.
So when we look at this item, August 14th, what we would want to do if the board authorizes us to move forward is immediately the next day release these RFQs, because we have to get busy designing and working on that construction management plan to streamline that work. Those would require, let's see if I can beat Robin to it. On this slide, in September, we would bring you back contracts for those two pieces of work. And they would have contingencies built in them that said, if we get to January, you're only going to get money for the work you've done to date. That the entire contract, which would have been for the architectural oversight of the project and those kinds of things, would not happen. But it would be, maybe a couple $100,000, because you're going to have to get to design to a point to be able to release bids for construction. So that then, at this date, Robin, thank you, at this date, we can bring back construction contracts, because if we don't bring you construction contracts in January, then we can't get finished on time. So there is some risk, and we'll have conversation with you between now and the 14th about what that will be, and certainly be prepared to address it then.
Can you include just an element of how to mitigate the risk along the way as well, right? So not just here's the financial risk, but how do we avoid getting to a place where we go, we got to scrap it and just sort of waste those couple $100,000? I mean, ideally we don't get there, right? But
yeah, that's the plan, not to get there, but there's always a but.
I wanted to add, my trustee tapped me on the shoulder. Not only is it manufacturing I want to highlight, but it's also the construction trades, which includes welding, and our welders graduate and make $60,000, and the amount of money on a construction site as well, which there's a high need. Trustee Adams happens to be, regretfully didn't mention that she is an MCC alum, came back and taught, and is a machinist, and so she can speak specifically to that question, and I want to offer her an opportunity to do so, if that's okay, if you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you. As Dr. Beatty has told you, I've been a machinist. For 40 years I was a machinist. Taught at the college for 3.5 years under a grant-funded program. How did I get to teaching? I got a call from one of the people at the college and said, why don't you come teach for us? We have a position open. I said, what, me teach? I don't think so. But what I figured out as I looked around was I was one of the youngest people standing in the shop. And I was 50+ years old. Now, I'm not just talking about machining, I'm talking about welders. I'm talking about, we're going to need people who can operate robotics. We're going to have people who can repair robotics. We're going to have people who can repair CNC machines. We're going to have people who can repair welding machines, all sorts of things that are going unfulfilled at this point in our community. And it's a crying shame that if we don't take this opportunity to partner together, and in case you can't tell, I'm passionate about it, if we don't take this opportunity to partner together, we are missing a great opportunity. And I can speak from the heart about this because of my background. By the fact that I live in Sub-District 2, I actually live right over here on Campbell. I can't be any closer, and welcome to the neighborhood, by the way. So, you know, let's just keep in mind that this doesn't just benefit children of today, it'll benefit children of tomorrow and the next generation, let alone their parents. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That was totally unrehearsed, and so I absolutely, that was the plan. So, no. So, thank you, trustee.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Beatty. Thank you for the team of leadership that you brought with you tonight. Thank you for laying out a vision and being a willing partner and a very collaborative partner, and we look forward to hearing more about this project. So we very much appreciate it. Thank you for staying with us this evening.
Okay, thank you for having us.
And at this point in the agenda, we will turn to the regular business items. And the chair recognizes Superintendent Dr. Vidal to present those items.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back in May, the board had approved the technology plan for 2020. And at this time, we are, hold on, let me just find this real quick. Linda had sent it to me earlier and I lost it because of presenting. Oh, okay, thank you. Let me find it. Give me a second here. I'm on the wrong section because I don't see it. All right. Thank you. And so in May, the board had received and approved the technology plan for 2019-2020. We're at this point requesting authorization to use the current available capital funds, capital fund dollars for purchases necessary under the 1920 plan. And so what we're asking the board to take action on is the $2,086,555 of capital fund balance to fund the 2020 technology plan.
Thank you. Are there any questions about this item, Mr. Abarca?
I can't recall if it's this one or the next one, so please correct me if I'm wrong. It says this was a 3-year plan, right? So is this the first of 3 years of this same quantity?
Yes.
So it's a total of 7.5 or 5?
Yeah, somewhere in that range over the next, yes, sir.
And is that quantity going to get us to where we need to be long-term? Because I think this is, not that I'm against any of this, it's just, it seems there are a lot of large ticket items around technology, and I want to get a grasp of the full.
And this is just one component. There are a couple of other resources that have already been allocated and authorized, so it is a larger ticket. This, you've already given us permission for those APs and the network and some of those things that are going. So this is a smaller component, probably collectively over the next 3 years in total. We'll be looking at 10 to 12 million.
Are there any additional questions on this item? Seeing no additional questions, it would be in order to take a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Is there any debate on the motion? Seeing no debate, we will call the roll.
Ms. Manser?
Yes.
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Wasser Strom? Yes. Ms. Woolsey?
Yes.
The motion is passed. Dr. Vidal, it'll be in order to introduce the next item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the item that I referred to at the podium earlier. This is the CDW Government LLC in the amount of $324,555.75. The administration is requesting the approval of the bid and contract from Computer Discount Warehouse for purchase of student devices needed in the Project Lead the Way programs. CDW offered the best and lowest bid for these devices. They will be funded by the capital allocation that was just approved.
Thank you. Are there any questions about this item?
One question, one of the fellows I enjoyed listening to in the last board was Carl, and Carl always would ask where we stand on minority contractors and minority suppliers. Where do we stand on, I don't know who in the devil sells computers, I'm sure everybody does, but where do we stand on our minority allocations?
We'll bring you the June final wrap-up report as soon as we get the year-end closed out, so we'll be able to give you last year's, and we're just a few weeks into this year. But I'm pretty confident we're going to hit our targets for last year, largely because of the Lincoln Middle project. But I want to check and make sure. Something tells me that CDW is actually a minority-owned business and that we failed to give you that information in this board item, but we'll check it and confirm.
Thank you, Ms. Quinley. It would now be in order to receive a motion to approve this item.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any debate on the item? Seeing no debate, please call the roll.
Thank you. Ms. Manser?
Yes.
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Wasser Strom?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
There's a majority in favor, and the CDW government purchase of laptops is approved. It would now be in order to receive a motion to approve the consent items.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent items. Is there any debate? Seeing no debate, the board secretary will call the roll.
Ms. Manser?
Yes.
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserstrom?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes. With that, this concludes our agenda for this evening. Everyone for coming out tonight and staying with us, and appreciate all the work that went into this discussion this evening, Dr. Vidal. Thank you.
I know, but I needed for you all to hear from me.
Yes, because I've never